Well, good morning and many thanks for allowing me to be part of your Sunday morning this morning. We're standing here on the banks of Loch Lomond and I want to read just a verse or two from the book of Revelation, chapter number 8 and verse 1, which says, "And when he had opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven about the space of half an hour. And I saw the seven angels which stood before God, and to them were given seven trumpets. And another angel came and stood at the altar, having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne." We do look to God to bless his word to us this morning. So Revelation chapter 8 describes a unique, a remarkable event. Not only a moment's silence in heaven, but 30 minutes silence in heaven. A year or so ago I was at a big conference and they observed the minute's silence at 11 a.m. on the 11th of November. And it was one of these massive conference centres, and everything just suddenly went silent. It was so noticeable, and the silence seemed to press upon you. I suppose because today we're used with all sorts of things going on, all sorts of distractions and intrusions in our time. And that presence of a minute's silence just brought home the profundity of the moment. But here in Revelation chapter 8, we've got not just a minute, but half an hour, and heaven stays silent. Perhaps just drawing a line between some of the great events in the book of Revelation, the great episodes of judgment that God would pour out upon this world. Something even worse is about to happen, and there's a pause in heaven. But in Revelation 8 too, we see that heaven just stays silent just for a little moment, so that in a sense the prayers of God's people can be heard. And that 30 minutes of silence in heaven is punctuated primarily by the prayers of God's people. God takes time out almost to listen to his people's prayers. And that is a great encouragement to you and I, that whilst we, I'm sure, appreciate that God's busy, and whilst we appreciate that God is great, it's a tremendous revelation of Scripture that God takes time to listen to our prayers. There are many occasions in the Bible when you see the effect of that. Occasions which seem to go beyond the realms of redemption or salvation, where everything seems to be out of control, and yet God intervenes and God answers prayer. Moments, for example, when the nation of Israel are trapped in Egypt. They're trapped between the armies of Egypt and the Red Sea, and God answers prayer and he opens the seas. Or that time when Jonah is stuck there in the belly of the whale, and God answers prayer, and out comes Jonah from the whale, and he declares salvation is of the Lord. But perhaps there's something even more significant and important than that. It's when God takes time not to answer prayer. And in 1 Kings chapter 18 and 19, you'll find that situation described. You've got a great man, a prophet, Elijah. And Elijah in 1 Kings 19 prays that his life might come to an end. He's no better than his fathers. He sits under the juniper tree and he just wants everything to finish. And God takes time, and he refuses, in a sense, to answer that prayer. Instead of giving Elijah up to his own despair and despondency, to his own lack of self-worth, to his own poor assessment of who he is and where he is, God takes time to refuse to answer that prayer. And he takes time, in fact, to revive Elijah, to feed him, to give him strength again, and to lead him into a far better place than he's ever been before, to take him into the silence of a cave, and to allow Elijah to hear something that he's never heard before, a still small voice in which God would speak. And that still small voice speaking to Elijah in the depths of his depression and despair utterly transforms his life and his ministry, and revives him again to usefulness for God. So let's be encouraged there in Revelation chapter 8 that God not only answers prayer, but God takes time out to listen and to answer prayer. And perhaps too, we ought not to be too surprised when God also takes time out to refuse to answer our prayer, because he's got something far better than we ever prayed for. He's got some better and bigger and grander plan for you and I than anything we could ever imagine. Thanks very much for being with me this morning on the very still banks of Loch Lomond here in the west of Scotland. Thanks now.